Hey guys, Eric and Joey here to talk about the Walking Dead episode called Walk With Me. Very different, kind of now for something completely different type episode.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty daring that they sort of leave the dictatorship behind and just focus in on Andrea and Michonne and, of course, Woodbury.
Yeah, Woodbury, although getting there was interesting because the whole opening with the helicopter, which, by the way, I want to wonder, is this the helicopter that we saw over Atlanta, and was it just...
That's a good point.
The ill-fated helicopter, yeah. But it was cool because we wondered, I mean, I don't know about you, but I was wondering, is this a flashback? Are these guys working with the governor knowing he's going to show up in this episode? And it was none of the above. It was happening in the present, but they were not part of the governor's group.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was a flashback because we've seen that kind of thing before in the show, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and you know, we're going to talk a little bit more about the comic book here, I think, this week, is just in relation to the governor and Woodbury and how different their portrayal was, which was dramatically different as far as, I think, the face they put out there.
It was different, but I liked it because it fits within the show, especially with the governor. In the comic book, he's more two-note, you know, he's just the bad guy. But here, he's more sympathetic, like that moment towards the end where we get to see him look at that picture of his family. It sort of makes him more human in a way, even though he's really, really twisted. But I thought it was more effective that way.
Yeah, I mean, in the comic book, Woodbury is basically Thunderdome or, you know, Escape from New York. It worked great in the comic book, but I do think it would be very different and jarring in this TV show. And I like the idea that he's kind of created Mayberry almost, but it's all fake, and we see that he's very screwed up and a nasty guy in his own right, but he's putting out that sort of fake air of come join me here.
In a way, that makes it even scarier because it's so nice and because it's so pristine, and you know there's just this whole seedy underbelly that's laying underneath it all.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the stuff we learned at the end about Governor later, but what do you think about Andrea and Michonne in this episode and their portrayal?
I'm undecided on how I feel about Michonne. I mean, we haven't really seen her up until this episode, and even in this episode, she barely says a word. Yeah. Which kind of plays into her character in that way. You know, she's very reserved. But that also means that more of the episode is heaped onto Andrea, who is not my favorite character.
Yeah. I see that too. Same here.
And there was the romantic kind of thing with Andrea towards the governor, which I thought was really weird and sort of awkward. But overall, I do like that it focused on that group of characters rather than go back to Rick and cut between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I saw, I guess, a tiny kernel of something with Andrea and the governor, although I didn't think it was too much. I like for now that Michonne is almost like Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. I mean, she can speak, but she barely speaks, and you just see her kind of observing, clearly a very, very guarded person, and, you know, is not trusting the situation at all. I mean, it is there on her face that she is just always kind of ready for something to go wrong.
Yeah, and it's weird to think about that they've been together for, what, 7 months or so?
7 or 8 months.
And Andrea says it, that she knows nothing about her. So she's been tight-lipped for quite a while. Yeah. And I'm sure the situation that they're in Woodbury is not going to help matters.
Now, we also got a big returning character here. We got Merle Dixon.
Good old Merle.
Good old Merle. A character that I bitched quite a bit about in season 1. I had a lot of issues with the portrayal of Merle. Not the fact that he was that horrible, because yes, people like that exist, but the fact that the group would ever keep him around when he's that repellent.
Yeah, like we never learned like what his attributes were other than being a horrible racist.
I mean, they said he was a good hunter with Daryl, but come on.
That's debatable. I'm not sure about that, but he was toned down here quite a bit.
Very toned down. I mean, kind of like Lori is just kind of like a reboot almost. Merle's even a more dramatic reboot. Now, granted, we only saw Merle 1 or 2 episodes, then he was gone, and it's been quite a while for him. So, you know, you could say he's off the drugs, let's assume, and the governor kind of has him reined in. I will say, though, that it's like, yeah, if this was the Merle that we met him in season 1, I'd understand, because he's just kind of like an asshole, you know, but he's sympathetic about Amy dying.
It's very weird.
He's not yelling racist things to Michonne's face.
like right away.
Yeah, right away.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know what he's been through in that time period between last time we saw him and he chopped off his own hand until now, which I'm sure has sort of, you know, honed him in a little bit. But still, it was very surprising to see him so pulled back.
Yeah, but I think if he's going to exist on this show again, if he's going to have anyone who's willing to work with him, that was necessary.
That's very true.
And Michael Rooker, by the way, opening credits series regular, which I didn't know.
Oh, really? I didn't notice that.
So he'll be around for a while.
Good eye.
And let's talk then about the end though, and what the governor was really up to, especially regarding first those soldiers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a price to pay, I guess, for paradise, you know, and that's exactly what they showed here. I was surprised that they did it all within the episode, which I guess is sort of a result of it being solely focused on Woodbury and the governor.
Right.
But I had expected them to sort of not drag out, but elongate his turn from, oh, he's this nice, great guy that's running this community, to, no, he's actually this horrible, horrible person.
I know that there's like comic book purists who are just going to be angry that the governor is not like the Major Blood-looking governor from the comic books, but I do think it was smart for that reason, to kind of appease some of the comic book fans, to show, don't worry, like, right away we're going to tell you that this guy is, a pretty horrible guy himself.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, he kills, he didn't have to go out and find those soldiers and kill them. He could have just let it go. But I'm guessing it was twofold. He wanted their supplies, and he probably realized that a group of soldiers might not take orders. And, there is that kind of little bit about how he's saying the governor is a nickname that stuck. And I think it's Andrea who's like, yeah, but that's a title. The idea that he clearly likes that title, likes being in charge.
He likes the power that he has. And soldiers, if they come to that community, they're definitely going to take over because they're the ones that know how to fortify something like that. And the governor won't have that.
And then the very end, when we see that, he's also, there's some interesting things throughout the episode where he's got that guy Milton who's pretty creepy himself.
Yeah.
And they are talking about, can the zombies almost be reasoned with? Is there anything of their humanity left inside them? And then at the end, we have that reveal, which is from the comic books, of the governor having this kind of room of zombie heads.
As you do.
As you do.
Yeah, I really like the idea. This is coupled with what I mentioned earlier, the photo of his family, and they're sort of researching if there's a kernel of the person that used to be inside the zombies.
Yeah.
I like that whole idea together of making him really, he's trying to maybe get his family back that he has somewhere that we don't know about. But I really like that idea, and I like that aspect of his character.
Yeah, and it's a nice weird thing where it's like, it's giving him some sort of sympathy, like you said, but it's also making him even more twisted as we see it. And so, plenty to talk about here. A very different episode of The Walking Dead. Let us know what you thought. Are you cool with the changes of the governor from the comic book? Or are you freaking out right now? And we'll be back next week.